And now I'd like to introduce our keynote luncheon speaker. Arnold Kamler is chairman and CEO of Kent International, a manufacturer of bicycles and bicycle accessories. He joined the family business in the customer service department 2 weeks after graduating in 1972 from the American University in Washington, D.C., with a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration and a major in marketing. He moved to sales, then to administration, and was promoted to president in 1980. Now, Kent International has been honored by Walmart 5 times with the Supplier of the Quarter Award, and also has received Walmart's Supplier of the Year Award in Manufacturing in both 2014 and 2015. The company is a major supplier to Toys R Us, Target, Amazon, and many more, in addition to Walmart. Mr. Kamler is going to share with us his 5-decade journey to find the best place to build bikes and his business. Particularly, he'll describe the strategic go-to-market decisions that made his decision to move the business back to the States. It's not about reshoring, he asserts, it's about growing the business. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Kamler to the stage.
Thank you, Pat. It's a great honor to be here today. My name's Arnold Kamler, and as Pat said, I'm the chairman and CEO of Kent International and Bicycle Corporation of America. In a time when American factories are closing and jobs are moving offshore, we made the decision to bring some of our production back to the United States. This move, as I'll explain a little bit more detail later, was inspired by Walmart's $250 billion pledge for additional purchasing of American supplied products over the next 10 years. I'm not sure who's happy about our decision, our customers who think it's a fantastic idea, or our competitors who think we've made a great mistake. Well, I'm here to tell you we've not made a mistake. We had our official grand opening in October of 2014. In attendance were Walmart Vice President Cindy Marsiglio and the Governor of South Carolina and my good friend Nikki Haley. 4 months after our opening, and you'll keep the things in context about the amount of employees we're talking about, Walmart was so happy with us, they sent a film crew from California down to the factory to film a little bit of what was going on.
I'm in South Carolina, small town, everyone knows each other, family, friends. We all go to the same church, same schools.
The city of Manning is our county seat, but we're a rural county. We have about 35,000 people. Just a good place to live and raise children. We have lost a lot of manufacturing. Some of it has been moved offshore, of course. And the Bicycle Corporation of America has been very important to us in the fact that they have chosen us.
The people of Manning are among the nicest and hardest working people I've seen in many years. We just fell in love with the community and we like doing business here, and we're only 4 months into operation and we're rolling at a really great pace.
It gives you a good sense of feeling knowing that one of the kids, likely right here in Manning, are going to ride that bike. So you do the best that you can do, and then you take it a notch above that.
Whenever I go into a Walmart and I see our bicycles on display, it gives me a great feeling.
The quality of the bikes we build, we're all on quality. We all check behind each other, we check, we make sure everything is good. If there's a problem, we let each other know, we help each other out.
My first bicycle was a Kent. The quality then was great, and the quality now is great.
Bicycle Corporation of America currently employs 67 people. At the end of this 4-year project, we should employ approximately 175 to 200 employees.
You know, I felt kind of good to get that call that I was, about to be employed.
Going to work every day, I love it.
To have a job, to be able to go to work every day, it feels great. I don't care what time it is, it feels good.
Well, we now have 100 associates working in the factory there. The total retail bicycle market in the United States this year will be about 15 million bicycles. 50,000 of these bicycles will be assembled by companies other than us. We'll assemble 275,000 bicycles in South Carolina this year. We also import 2.6 million bicycles. We have an expanding bicycle accessory business. We even have the license to make Goodyear tires and tubes. As Pat mentioned, our major customers are Walmart, Target, Toys R Us, Amazon, Academy Sporting Goods, and a whole lot of other customers. As Pat mentioned, I graduated from American University in Washington in 1972 with a Bachelor of Science degree. I was not a great student. I had a very undistinguished career. The highlight of my career was being named captain of the golf team my senior year. I was a good ball striker. I still can't putt. Upon graduation, I decided to join the family business. The business had been founded by my dad in 1950, then changed to a wholesale business called Philcam Cycle in 1958. My dad hated the retail business. He grew up on the second floor of the bike shop and was really excited to get into the wholesale business. When I joined the business in 1972, we were a pretty small company. We had 6 employees, including my mother and my father. The bicycle market, though, was expanding pretty quickly at that time with the introduction of what was called back then a racing bike. We now call it road bicycles. When I joined, 70% of all the bicycles sold that year were made in the United States. They were produced by 8 American bicycle factories, and you probably recognize the name of most of them. There were about 50 importers. I've named some of the larger ones. I even put our own name in there. But it's every one of those American companies either just closed the doors or went bankrupt. Also in 1972, the landscape for bicycles was very different than it is now. Now you have just a handful of large retailers. The ones that I mentioned before probably sell 75% of all the bicycles sold in the United States. But in 1972, we called on 100 department stores, 75 discount department stores, 10 chains like Toys R Us, Child World, people like that, hardware stores, automotive stores, and there were 7,000 bike shops. It was a heck of a lot different, or a lot more people to call on. I used to spend 3 weeks alone just in the Los Angeles and San Francisco area calling on customers. We were importing bicycles at that time from Japan, Taiwan, Germany, and Romania. By 1976, Japan and Germany became too expensive. By 1978, costs in Taiwan were increasing very dramatically. And my father came to me and said, Arnold, I think it's time that we consider doing some manufacturing in the United States. And I said, I don't know anything about manufacturing. You know, I've been to factories, but he said, Arnold, it's not quite as hard as you think it is. I don't think he was right about that. And but he arranged for me to visit a couple of bicycle factories in Japan. And I spent several weeks in Japan just observing and watching, and they're the original lean manufacturing people. And I learned quite a lot and came back and told them, okay, I think we can do it. And so we rented 35,000 square feet in West Orange, New Jersey, in the Thomas Edison building that had been the first factory building owned by Thomas Edison. We did okay for a while, and we're on the 3rd floor, which was really challenging, but it was a small part of our business. But we saw enough to believe that there was a future, and so we then moved to Kearney, New Jersey. I was looking for a picture of the building in Kearney, New Jersey, but unfortunately, it's now a CVS pharmacy. What else is new? The challenge then, as it is now, is supply chain. Even back then in 1980, we started there was a company in Indiana called Melton. I don't think they're in business any longer, but they had very nice hard automation welding. And so we made in the US all of our own frames and forks. We made our handlebars, we made chain wheels, and then we sourced the other parts. And typically that's what happens in the bicycle business around the world. Most factories really just make frames and forks, and all the other components are purchased. After a couple years, we built our business in the United States up to about 250,000 bicycles. We're a lot smaller company, and we were also importing about 800,000 bicycles. So life was pretty good for us. But this was also the beginning of China coming onto the scene with really very difficult situation. We had no choice but to move our import business to China. And under great pressure from my bank in 1991, they said, Arnold, you're losing about $5 on every bicycle you're making in New Jersey. I think it's time you give it a rest. And so with, it was heartbreaking. I love manufacturing. I was not from that background, but I really like it. We had 200 some odd workers. I think I knew everyone by name. And it was really fun for me walking through the factory every day and greeting everyone. By 1997, eight American bicycle manufacturers had closed, and really shocking by the end of 97 to see Huffy closing, and then a year later going bankrupt, and then Schwinn closing and also going bankrupt. Both brand names still exist. The companies have been sold a few times. In 2002, we were buying bicycles, 1990, we started buying bicycles in a factory in northern China. In a city called Anshan, which if you look at a map is equal to about the middle of North Korea. Not a great place these days. We did great with these people. Unfortunately, the two people that we were working with were transferred by the communist government to another area, and our business there quickly ended. But fast forward to 2002, these same two gentlemen who were retired came to me and they said, Arnold, we're really bored. Could you consider opening a bicycle factory? If we opened a bicycle factory up in the Shanghai area, would you try to give us orders? And I said, sure, I'll try, but no promises because we have our present resources. But we gave them every terrible order we got that year, 50 pieces of this and 30 of that and 100, but they took the orders and they said, thank you. Our business with them grew very quickly. By 2005, 2006, 2005, I went to them, I said, look, our business is growing so quickly, you either will need to expand this little factory or I'm going to have to go shopping for additional resources. They said, please don't do that. We'll work with you. We'll build a bigger factory. I came back to Shanghai approximately 3 months later. They had already broken ground and laid foundation on a building that would be about 250,000 square feet. The first building was about 35 or 40,000 feet. So that's what I call a comprehensive study in China. 2010 was a great year for our company. At the time, that's my son Scott. I owned 51% of the company, as I still do now. 49% was owned by my sister. She had wanted to sell her shares. Her husband, who was working for the business, was retiring. At the same time, our same people in China who bought that little car from me had expressed an interest in buying a share of our company. So I brokered a deal between my sister and the factory in China, and they're now my partner. What was really amazing is they said, Arnold, look, we don't have an accountant, we don't have a lawyer. Could you go find one for us? And so really, I'm very lucky. I've got a great life. I'm married to a wonderful girl. We'll be married 40 years in November. I've got 2 great sons. Yeah, actually, we're still best friends, which is pretty cool. I have two great sons. My elder son is a vice president and partner of a large talent agency out in Beverly Hills. His most famous client is Betty White, and he tells me that she has more energy than most of his staff in the office. My younger son naturally followed him out to Hollywood, to the glamorous life, but finally, 6 years ago, he came back, and 2 years ago, I named him company president, and he's doing great. Okay, in 2012, our largest customer asked me to come down to Bentonville, Arkansas. They had an idea. They had these huge international distribution centers located strategically around the country, 5 of them, each of them 5 million square feet, and they were being underutilized. They said, oh, we got an idea. What if you brought in the bicycles close to these 5 international distribution centers and then arranged for complete assembly so we could then have special trucks deliver the bicycles to our stores fully assembled? And I said, I have no idea, but I will certainly take a look at it. And so we looked at it pretty extensively for a couple of months, but I came back to them, I said, it's just not going to work. It's just logistically, the country is too big, and the damage to the bicycles somewhere in transit is just going to make it just not workable. But it got me thinking about assembly again and manufacturing, which I thought would never happen. In 2013, Walmart held their annual convention called YBM, or Year Beginning Meeting, in Orlando, Florida. Unfortunately, they've now moved it to Indianapolis in February, not exactly the garden spot. Indianapolis is a great town, but not in February. The big push at that YBM meeting was the push for the additional $250 billion of spending that they committed to do instead of buying from typical import resources. On the second day of the convention, I received a phone call actually an email from the bicycle buyer, a guy named Craig Makita. And he said, Arnold, there's a chance if you want to meet Governor Nikki Haley from South Carolina. She wants to meet you. So I said, well, I've always been very impressed with Governor Haley. And I said, yes, of course. And so I met her with her staff and some people from Walmart and people from the Commerce Department. And she turned to me and she said, Arnold, I don't know if she really has a Southern accent or not. We make airplanes in South Carolina. We make cars in South Carolina. We make car and truck tires in South Carolina. But Arnold, I want to be able to tell the kids we make bicycles in South Carolina. She then turned to the bike buyer and she said, Craig, if Arnold builds his factories, you're going to buy these bicycles, isn't that right? And I said, Governor, it doesn't exactly work that way, but I'm sure he'll try. Governor Haley then took a piece of paper, wrote down her cell phone number, handed it to me, and said, Arnold, if you need any help in your search or any information at all about South Carolina, you call me. Actually, I've not needed to call her. I've sent her a couple of text messages over the years, but her staff in South Carolina was great. But I also knew that I couldn't just look at South Carolina, where we ultimately ended up, and I looked at several other states. They all pretty much had the same program, but having the direct contact with the governor was pretty cool, and it has been very helpful for us. But we also knew that before we needed to find a place, even within South Carolina, with a good labor force. We needed to find a proper building. We wanted to be within 75 miles of an major ocean seaport, and we are with Charleston, because we not only have to import a lot of the parts, we also will be looking to export our bicycles to Europe. We hired a consultant through a very good friend of mine who is a senior partner at Deloitte. And they helped us, and they told us, no, Arnold, the deal that you're getting from South Carolina is the best deal that South Carolina or any state is going to offer you. We looked at a lot of buildings, and everything was either too big or too small, the ceiling's too low or too expensive for us. But finally, just about when I was ready to give up on South Carolina, one of the local people there said, Arnold, there's a building, it's pretty ugly, but it might work for you. This is what the building looked like on the inside. In addition to that, there was no natural gas, and I knew that this would be a deal breaker for us, because we're going to start painting later this year. We've just signed a $3 million contract with a company called Cook and Gemma to install a state-of-the-art powder coating facility within our factory. But this is what it looked like when we moved in, and it was even rougher than that. We had to put in all new electricity. We had to put in HVAC. We put in those great fans. I don't know if you've seen some of those fans, and the favorite name of any company I've ever heard of, the Big Ass Fan Company. We didn't actually buy from them, but we bought from a similar kind of fan company. The lack of natural gas was going to be the deal breaker for us, and so I told the guy from Commerce Department that we were going to have to keep looking. I was having dinner that evening in Charleston, and my cell phone rang, and I took the call and said, Mr. Kamler, Governor Haley would like to speak with you. And I said, okay, could you give me a couple of minutes, let me go outside. And so I went outside, and she came on the phone 2-3 minutes later, and she says, Arnold, this is Governor Haley. I said, yes, I know. If I can get natural gas direct to your factory and South Carolina will pay for it, are you moving to South Carolina? And I said, yes. Let me talk more about what's going on as to some of the other reasons, in addition to having the help and the incentives. All the help and all the incentives are only going to be helpful for a short amount of time. You're then going to have to face the reality of the market. There's tremendous advantages of doing business now in the United States in our low technology business that did not exist before. The cost of energy in China and in Asia has skyrocketed. And so our cost of energy in South Carolina is 40% of the cost of the same natural gas electricity in China. You have labor in China that's going up at the rate of 10 to 15% a year, and that's compounded, and that's not going to stop. I think it has a little bit of a respite this year, but that's going to increase again. The attitude of the workers is getting worse and worse and worse. China was a pretty advanced society prior to the Cultural Revolution in 1949. If you go back to 1948 China and Shanghai and Beijing, those cities were as modern, as decadent as New York, Paris, London. Hard for anybody who's been to China to imagine, but that was what happened. The loyalty of workers in China does not exist. Workers cannot wait to change from job to job. Our friends at our factory in China have 1,800 workers right now, and they need to replace between 200 to 300 workers every month. There's a book called Factory Girls. It describes the real attitude of the workers in China. It follows the life of a couple of different girls. My favorite chapter, it's not a greatly written book, but it still is important reading for people in international business to know. This one girl is talking to her mother. She had changed jobs 5 times in the last 4 years. And she's on the phone with her mother, and her mother says, "Look, you've got to stop jumping from job to job to job. You need to stay in one place, let your bosses know how truly great you are. They'll appreciate you, they'll promote you, but you need to stay in place." And she said, "Mom, I understand, I agree 100%. The next day she quit her job and took a job across the street for a 3% salary increase. Robotics. China is offering tremendous incentives to factories for robotics. Why? Because of the same labor challenges we face here. Hey, the robot makes the same salary in the United States as it makes in China. The other thing that we're working on are the techniques of manufacturing. When we started back in a couple years ago, in October of 2014, we just mirrored what they were doing in China. But slowly, step by step, we are trying to bring more and more automation. We're not making as much progress as I want to, but I do feel pretty good about it. We've met with several automation companies. We'll meet with a lot more of automating jobs that are very repetitive jobs. We have the challenges of how to get started. Well, let me just, once again, I'm terrible. Anyway, this was our building when we moved in, and this is what it looks like right now. So we're pretty proud of the work that we've done so far. We've got really nice assembly lines and conveyors and robots for the wheel building. Jumping ahead, but these are a couple of bicycles that we're making down in South Carolina. We have these couple of multi-speed 20-inch bicycles that are selling like crazy at Walmart. And then we signed the license. This has got to be the luckiest man in the whole world for Margaritaville. We all should have a life like Jimmy Buffett, who will earn this year in excess of $100 million in royalties. We were a little bit lucky in finding a factory manager. The Commerce Department identified 5 factory managers for us. One of the 5 I thought was perfect because he had experience in automation, he had experience in robotics, and he had experience in powder coating. Now, the environmental laws in South Carolina are the U.S. minimum, but we expect the U.S. minimum environmental laws to get tougher and tougher, so we just went immediately to powder. We have a very sophisticated powder coating installation that we're putting, as I mentioned before, that we'll actually have, they'll have the cleaning inside the machine. We'll have the first coat and then another heating, and then a second coat and another heating, which will give us automotive quality finishes at almost the same cost as at probably lower cost than normal wet painting. And so we're pretty excited about it. We got tremendous help from South Carolina in the employment with a program they have called Ready SC, where they were able to help us by training all of the potential workers in our factory. And after they were done training them, they would then come to us and we had the option to hire or not hire. It sounded crazy to me, but we probably hire about 80% of the people they send, and it's going pretty well. It gets very hot in South Carolina, and so we put in air conditioning. You know, most factories in Asia are, some of the temperatures, 80, 85, 90 degrees inside the factory. I made a commitment that our maximum temperature would be 74 degrees in the factory, and actually some of the workers complained to me that it's too cold. If you drive around South Carolina in the summertime, you'd be shocked to see how many people do not have their air conditioning on, just have the windows open. It's surprising to me. Once again, we talked about supply chain before, and it's still a major problem. We're being a little bit frustrated by just the slowness of American companies. We meet with companies and we ask them for a quotation, whether it's on extruded aluminum or if it's on making parts. We had one company who was a steel fabricator. They came to me and they visited and they said, look, we'd like to make some of the parts. What do you think could work? And I said, well, I think handlebars, because we used to make handlebars. It's a pretty simple operation. And I said chain wheels, training wheel brackets were necessary. And so I said, that's great. And so I went into the back of the factory, I gave them samples. They looked at me and said, what am I supposed to do with this? I said, what do you mean to do with it? You take it, you weigh it, you measure it, you see how many bends there are? I said, oh no, Arnold, without a blueprint and a technical drawing, we can't do this. To me, it doesn't make sense. I know there's a lot of companies that think like that. I just don't agree. I said, we've got to get going. We held a supplier summit a year ago in South Carolina, last September, where we invited bicycle parts makers from Europe and from Asia and who used to make parts in the United States to South Carolina, so they can actually see our factory in operation, see that it's more than just talk. And there's a couple that are interested, but unfortunately, nobody has committed. And so we're working, there's a company in the Netherlands who supplies most of our robots for the wheel truing. And they've just made a fantastic machine. And I don't know if we put audio to it. They had elevator music to go with the video that they created. But here's a machine that will make bicycle rims. You just feed in like 20-foot sections of extruded aluminum. And a finished bicycle rim comes out, and with only actually one operator. And it's courtesy of my friends at Holland Mechanics. You know, as I mentioned, we're going to put in the painting. Before we can go into welding frames, we first have to get the painting all set up. And so we were looking at traditional frame building as they do in Asia, the whole world, where the frame is steel and the aluminum is cut into smaller sections and then punched and made ready for welding into dies and jigs. But just recently, I've been made aware of a tab and slot technology. I think most of you are probably aware of it, but in case you're not, this is where lasers cut the steel tubing or the aluminum tubing into such a position that you don't need position jigs. The frames or the steel, after it's done, just clicks together and goes right from what do you call it, the laser cutting, gets clicked together and goes right into the robot for welding. The cost of it now, the machines that I only know a few companies that are making it only in Italy right now. The cost is still too high. I'm still surprised the cost is as high as it is. I mean, lasers are nothing new. They've been around, well, I have a video from 1964 when I first became aware of lasers.
I think you've made your point, Goldfinger. Thank you for the demonstration.
Choose your next witticism carefully, Mr. Bond. It may be your last.
Do you expect me to talk?
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Okay. I apologize for that, but it's but really that's 1964. So I'm hoping that there'll be more companies entering, because really these lasers represent a great, the combination of lasers and automatic tube bending represent really a great opportunity for American companies to get back into low technology, high volume manufacturing. This project has been fantastic for our company. Really, since we started the project, not only is our business in South Carolina growing, but our import bicycle business is growing. It's giving us great exposure. It's obviously it's a real feel-good story. I'm not doing it for that reason, but it's been a nice fringe benefit for us. One of the things that I like to say is that we're not reshoring our business. We're only reshoring part of it. Our goal is not to eliminate our import business, but to have our growth fueled by American manufacturing. We're going to make this year about 275,000 bicycles. Our goal for 2017 is 500,000 bicycles, and by 2020, our goal is to make 1 million bicycles in the United States. 2020 is a long time from now. Maybe I'll probably be retired by then, don't know. I've been in this business for 44 years, so you just don't know. But my partners from China are great. Fortunately, they're too busy to be here right now. They're making for us right now between 12,000 to 14,000 bicycles per day in China. I want to thank them for that, but mostly I want to thank them for being supportive of our USA initiative. Not many Chinese companies would agree. I mean, they own 49%, and obviously with 51% I could overrule, but that wouldn't make our relationship all that great, kind of like being married. I think when I started, they were kind of hoping that this was like a whim and that Arnold would get over it, but I have not, and I will not, and I am committed to this. I've learned a lot in my career, and I feel strongly now that the key to our USA economic future is manufacturing. I'm happy once I was, okay. And just for my part, I'm happy to be playing a small part in it. Thank you very much for inviting me.